Hi, Dr. Reagan Robertson, CCO of Productive Dentist Academy here, and I have a question for you. Are you finding it hard to get your team aligned to your vision, but you know you deserve growth just like everybody else? That's why we've created the PDA Productivity Workshop. For nearly 20 years, PDA workshops have helped dentists just like you align their teams, get control of scheduling, and create productive practices that they love walking into every day. Just imagine how you will feel when you know your schedule is productive, your systems are humming, and your team is aligned to your vision. It's simple, but it's not necessarily easy. We can help. Visit productivedentist.com/workshop. That's productivedentist.com/workshop to secure your seats now.
Because that's the thing I hear from owner doctors is, I don't have time. I don't think I'm a good mentor. I don't want to do it. They got a degree. They should figure it out. But here's a reality check. During COVID, they didn't even have to take dental boards. So you may want to do some mentorship.
Welcome to Investment Grade Practices Podcast, where we believe private practice dentists deserve to get the lifestyle today while building an asset for tomorrow. Join your host, Victoria Peterson, to design the practice of your dreams and secure your financial independence. Let's get started.
Welcome to a very, very special edition of Investment Grade Practice Podcast. I'm your host, Victoria Peterson, and with me today are Chris Sands from Profi 2020 Dental CPA Firm. Welcome, Chris.
Hi, Victoria. It's great to be back.
Great to be back with you as well. This is your second time. You might be my first repeat. I'm so excited about this.
Oh, I feel honored.
I also have Joanne Miles. She is a MAADOM, which means she is queen of all things practice management and one of our top IGP business advisors here at Productive Dentist Academy. Welcome, Joanne.
Hello. Thanks for having me.
Thank you. Thank you. And we've got a really special guest, Dr. Daniel Haws from Kuna Dental. Hi, Daniel.
Hello.
So we were here on a mastermind tonight. And as it turned out, it's the four of us in this room, and Daniel is asking really great questions. So I want to dedicate the whole podcast to this one focus. If you are a youngish dentist, and I'm not going to say youngin, because if you're a youngin, you just got out of dental school and you're figuring it out, but you've got some mileage on the tires. But you're still young. You're in that 38 to 45 bandwidth where you've probably been at it for a decade, and you're looking at what is the smart move today as a business owner. What is a smart move in dentistry? And Chris, I can't think of a better person in the country to tackle this question. So Daniel, why don't you ask specifically what your question is, and we're gonna let Chris just start chiming in.
Well, thanks. I think for me, I was a little bit later to the game when it came to practice ownership. I was in the military for a while, got into an associateship, moved, and then now I got into another associateship. It took me a while, and I think it was kind of like that typical, oh yeah, you can buy in, and you just keep going and and you're finally like, okay, when is this gonna happen? And so finally happened. About 2 years ago, I purchased the practice, and now the other doctor is working back for me, and we now have another associate. And so I've kind of gotten to this point. I'm 43 now, where I'm thinking, okay, like I got 20 years of this, but I'd rather exit a little bit sooner than kill myself and break my body and everything. So what's my strategy here? Where am I going? And what should I be focusing on as a heavy debt load, youngish dentist, not right out of school, but kind of in the prime of my practice as far as abilities and knowledge and stuff that I've learned. So I think that for me is where should I be focusing? I think there's probably quite a few other people that find themselves in my range of maybe they weren't the business guy right off the bat, but now they're interested in, focusing on that end game and making sure that it's a possibility.
So, Daniel, I would say that number one, while you still own the business, you always need to be seeking to maximize it. Maximize the space that you have if you can. I use a metric of revenue per chair, somewhere between 35 to maybe up as high as 40,000, but typically around 35,000 of revenue per chair per month. Multiply that by how many chairs you have, no matter how many are hygiene and how many are dentistry, and multiply that by 12 months, and that'll give you the revenue capacity of your space. You have, it sounds like you have the seller and then one full-time associate. Is that right?
Part-time associate, a couple days a week. So yeah.
So associates are, a lot of things. Associates are risk diversification for the business. And I think that it should be your mission as a practice owner to build $1 million a year producing doctors that are all doing over 80 or 85,000 a month. And there's an art and a science to that. The science is the easier part. It's maybe you have to invest in their clinical skill set. Maybe you hire for a clinical skill set that the practice currently refers out. But the art side is case acceptance and how they connect and influence people to move forward with the healthcare that you are ethically diagnosing and recommending in your treatment plans. I think one of the most one of the biggest leakages is doctors or practice owners not tracking all doctors' total case acceptance and how much treatment has not been delivered. Unfortunately, I think a lot of especially young doctors think that the job is just to diagnose. So it's really making sure that you do get case acceptance. That dentistry, dental production is really the core way to grow profit margin or thereby EBITDA, which increases your valuation. So there's only really 2 or 3 variable costs in general dentistry. I can name the 3. It's doctor pay. You may be paying them a percentage, and it's labs and supplies. And all 3 of those things track with how much dentistry gets produced. Everything else you have in the business is pretty much a fixed cost. All other employees are a fixed cost, whether they're paid hourly or salary, your rent, everything else is a fixed cost. So the definition of scaling in dentistry is getting more dental production, out of each doctor, maximizing each of those doctors. I said earlier, associates are a lot of things. And I like to think of associates. You brought up your debt. Associates are your debt payment plan. There's what you produce. Then there's the profit that you get off of those associates and what they're producing. But ultimately, associates, the best thing about them to any third party, buyer is that you have diversified the risk by creating some clinical duplication. If you're a solo doc, you are the riskiest form of business owner. You're the company's strongest employee and also the company's weakest link. And if you go down, game over. And so if you're I think a lot of practice owners take a lot of pride. Sometimes it's a misconception, but they take a lot of pride sometimes in saying, I'm the big producer here, right? It's a little bit of ego. And you don't want that. You want all the associates to outproduce you, and the business is probably worth the most when it's not reliant on you at all. And that also means the less reliant it is on you and your production, the less time that you'll have to hang around and be tied to the sale with any kind of tail there that you have to work for the buyer. So in terms of what, inside the business, what should you be doing to maximize things? I go through the normal checklist that I have. I always start with marketing. Most dental practices, private practices, very pathetically do 2% or less in marketing. Meanwhile, DSOs reinvest at a rate of 6 to 8%. And I'm just trying to get most private practices to do like 3 to 5%. Now it's got to be strategic. You got to track, where the new patient's coming from, what's working, what's not working. But then making sure if the phones are ringing, what's the conversion rate on the phones? And then, what's the new patient flow? Maximizing new patient flow, per full-time doctor. By the way, you said your doctor's part-time. A little bad news. I find that part-time doctors are not profitable pretty much at all. You got to go all in, make them full-time. There's reasons. Maybe the one that you have is part-time for a reason. Maybe they only want to work part-time, but if go all in, let them be full-time, give them all the new patients instead of adding them to your schedule, maximize them and put the pressure on yourself to refill your schedule. Right. But new patient flow is important. Recare rate, And then, like I said, case acceptance rate. But those associates, they are like here's another thing they are to you. They're your self-insurance. If you're a doctor out there that hates paying for your disability insurance, well, self-insure by getting associates. And I usually say that for every one large producing doctor, you need 3 full-time producing associates to replace yourself, just from a numbers standpoint, because you're typically paying them that 30 to 35%. Make sure that you have all the standard operating procedures documented. You have a clinical standard of care. Hopefully, I would hope that diagnosing and treatment planning is the same or very similar across all doctors. I think, by the way, that the solo doc office is the riskiest to the patient, by the way, because there's nobody looking over their shoulder, looking over their x-rays, looking over their work. And in multi-doctor practices, there's sometimes better collaboration and discussion around what's the right thing to do. But that should be hopefully that same standard of care. And I know I'm the accounting firm, and I'm talking.
I was going to say, this is amazing. This is amazing. And I saw Daniel taking a ton of notes, Chris, but I love the first 3 that you put out there. Number 1, maximize your space and have a per operatory goal. I think that right there, and Joanne, I'm going to have you weigh in here a little bit too. We're working with a ton of doctors right now. It's like, I can't get a patient in for 2 months, 3 months, 4 months. And so what you're talking about, Chris, is if you've got that 5th operatory or 6th operatory plumbed, but you're sitting in it as your office, it's costing you $40,000 a month.
Yeah, nothing good happens in the office, in a dental office. You don't need that office.
No, you need a stand-up computer desk somewhere with a laptop on it, right? Turn that into that. So I love that. And because I expected you to go to some sort of external, investment if I'm doing the smart move. But
no, the best investment is your business, bar none. And that's everything that I just said is what a DSO, if they buy a practice, that's exactly what they're going to come in and do anyway. So why don't you do it yourself, right? And a lot of doctors, if you achieve that, if you get all of those associates in place and you're not required to be there clinically that often, and that preserves your body, you may delay the sale, or you may capitalize on this opportunity in this market now and exit and learn from it. There's a lot to learn if you sell to a DSO. Learn with what I'm saying is actually true. If they come along and do those things, and then after your kind of tail is over, you might go repeat all of that because you realize I have a lot of doctors who've sold to and have worked for a DSO for 2 or 3 years. And they said, the thing I learned was my business wasn't so bad after all. They were asking me advice, and maybe I could do this again. I
love that. I also love your second bullet point. I'm going to write an article, or I'm going to totally rip off this headline from you, Chris. The $1 Million Associate. That should be the goal. There is no reason. And Daniel, I'm going to ask you, and then I'm going to go to Joanne and ask how it's possible. What did you think when Chris's recommendation was put all the new patients with the associate?
You know what? It's really funny because at first I went, that was my first.
Me too.
and at first I started thinking of how recently it's kind of gone that way. I've kind of backed off and found myself doing a little bit more of the administrative stuff in between, and kind of doing some of the staff stuff in between, and I've been like, wait, they aren't coming to get me. Wait, what's going on? They aren't getting me. Like I should be running around, and oh my gosh. And then I realized I've gone most of the day, and I saw like 2 or 3 out of the 40 people through hygiene or whatever. And I'm like, wow, that just happened. And I start worrying about, okay, what's going to happen in my chair? But I loved what Chris said there, is force yourself, like strain yourself to find the dentistry when you're there. And I think that that's actually important too. It's not coming up with dentistry that's not there. It's actually forcing me to have those conversations with the people that I've been, we'll just keep an eye on.
Because now you've got the time.
Now I have the time to actually take it with them and to say, hey, let's actually focus on what needs to be diagnosed and making sure that I'm not just doing emergency dentistry for you. So, yeah.
I love that. Joanne, over to you. For all those doctors who are having a heart palpitation right now going, oh my God, I spend so much money on marketing. There's no way I'm giving them to the new young doctor. how do you help associate doctors build the confidence? What can Daniel do to support making sure diagnostics are high and case conversion is high? What do we need to focus on with the associate?
One of the number one, when I've read several surveys of new grads coming out of school, the number one thing they're seeking is mentorship. And it really is all about, from the first hello with this associate doctor, it's the onboarding process and really getting them firm footing from day one. And it doesn't mean on day one, you're putting a drill in their hand and they're starting to drill away on a patient in a brand new operatory they've never sat in before. This is like cooking in a new kitchen. So there's the right way to onboard an associate, and that's really taking the time, showing them your tray setups, showing them all the materials that you have, showing them the burr setups that you have, and making sure, hey, does all this work? This is what we do here. Can you adapt to our system? And then there's a few little one-off things that they just really, really need to have, then, Dr. Haws could have that conversation with any new associate. Mm-hmm. And then show them the software. How do you read the x-rays? How do you, get them comfortable with their surroundings, and then walk them through the actual patient journey in the process. Here's our paperwork. Here are all the things. So you're really going back to the basics with them. You're not just throwing them in to the deep end without a life preserver. And then, once they've kind of found their footing and we start getting them with the patients, and the other piece is don't overload their schedule the first month that they're there. Let's see how they're feeling. Maybe do a single column and see how their timing is. Give them the time to breathe. And then highly, highly recommend case reviews weekly with new associates. You would actually set aside that time, that admin time that you were talking about, set aside time every week minimum, and pull their new patients that they're seeing. Look at their x-rays, look at the health history, look at their notes, and sit down with them. And the two of you have dialogue. You're mentoring them. So tell me what your thought process was when you were going through this treatment plan. Where did you feel like you maybe got stuck? What can I help you with? Particularly if you see a difference in how you maybe would have treatment planned it. Maybe you would have done a crown versus a 4-surface filling, something like that. So it's really truly mentorship and a dialogue back and forth. And I will tell you, I haven't met an associate that wouldn't just be screaming for the rooftops with happiness to have an owner doctor that's willing to invest in them and check in with them. They have someone that they can come to daily and say, hey, will you take a look at this x-ray? Am I off base here? Yeah. So it is an open communication and relationship. And then having the team be a part of that as well. And there's a trust factor between the associate and the team. And so the team can provide feedback as well in a respectful manner.
I love that so much, Joanne. Hardest piece of advice, and I'm going to stand by it the whole time I'm in dentistry, is you have to give your best, most capable dental assistant to the young doctor. Yes. And it makes every owner go, oh no, it took me 5 years to get them. But they will then you hire the new assistant. They get to work with you. And it's your senior lead assistant's job to mentor that person. So just as you're mentoring the doctor, the senior assistant is mentoring the new assistant, and she's also making sure that procedures are being followed and good habits are being formed. If you give a brand new associate to a brand new assistant, you're asking for trouble. Financially, man, I love that we can put a metric to this. One column, one chair, $45,000 a month, $500,000 a year. You're going to net 50% of that, for what would you do? How much time would you take for $250,000 a year? Would you do that 1 hour a week? Would you do that 2 hours a week? Could you go grab a beer after work? If you had zero money in the stock market and all you had to invest was 2 hours a week, and at the end of the year, somebody gave you $250,000, would you do it? Because that's the thing I hear from owner doctors is, I don't have time. I don't think I'm a good mentor. I don't want to do it. They got a degree. They should figure it out. But here's a reality check. During COVID, they didn't even have to take dental boards. So you may want to do some mentorship.
I mean, if you don't invest in them personally, you're not going to get a lot out of them professionally. I mean, you need to find out what their goals are, what their fears are. What keeps them up at night.
People first.
Both, financially, relationally, all that. Like, they're just like you in that way. They're just people, they're not like you in terms of, a lot of doctors will hire and say, they get so upset that the associate doesn't do everything like them. I mean, you may have, 10 years in the game, and they're going to be, I think it takes 10 years before somebody becomes a true dentist or in any profession. It takes 10 years of doing something before you become, really good at it. So I would totally echo the comments of the, giving them your top dental assistant, you retraining the new ones and going, because you're the only one that knows how to do that the way you did it. They won't. And showing them all those dental hacks. And the real awkward one, outside the box thinking here, is, I did this when I worked in a dental practice. We put cameras in the ops and recorded the first few months of associates interacting with patients. Later, we didn't do video. We just mic'd them up, and we had the patients sign off that it was being recorded for internal training purposes only. And it's amazing when somebody sees and hears, listens to themselves speak on camera, on audio. Tell you one thing, the next time they speak, it'll be a lot better. I mean, it's awkward. It's very awkward. But if you record yourself and play it for them and beat yourself up in front of them first, showing that, hey, I've been doing this for 10 years, but I'm still a student of the game. Man, I knew better than that. I should have said that differently. And then you listen to them and you praise them for like 3 things that they're doing really well. And then say, let me give you 3 things to add to your arsenal that next time will get you better case acceptance, or, you'll find that people will move forward with treatment, or whatever it is you want to work on.
That's pretty awesome. This is amazing. We've been going for quite a while here on one question. What should a mid-career doctor, who wants to maximize their return on investment from their practice, be thinking about? And Chris, you've given us so many great pearls. I know we're going to continue this dialogue, probably go into podcast episode 1.1, 1.2, 1.3, because this is really good stuff. Thank you all for being with me this evening. This is just amazing.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Thank you, Victoria.
Thank you for tuning in to this episode of Investment Grade Practices Podcast. If you find value in this episode, help us spread the word by passing it along to a dental friend, subscribe, and give us a like on iTunes or Spotify. Learn more about building your investment grade practice at productivedentist.com today.